If you ask anyone in nuclear what slows us down, the answer is never the technology. It's the timeline. Today, we're talking about what happens when AI meets our biggest bottleneck and when developers can submit a digital twin, a virtual reactor, instead of stacks of PDFs. If we get this right, we unlock nuclear at the speed of innovation. Before we jump in, here's a quick reminder. The views shared by our guests are their own, so please settle in, bring your enthusiasm, and get ready for a great conversation.
Welcome to Advanced Nuclear, the official podcast of UCAN Power, where leading experts, innovators, and policymakers explore the latest developments shaping the future of nuclear energy.
Welcome back to Advanced Nuclear, the official podcast of UCAN Power. I'm your host, Dominique Cooper. Today, we're diving into one of the most important and least understood challenges in advanced nuclear: time. AI is exploding, data centers are multiplying, electrification is accelerating, and our grid is being asked to do more than ever. Nuclear can meet that moment, but only if we can build faster, approve faster, and move faster without compromising safety. My guest today is one of the people working directly on that problem, Mr. Kevin Kong, founder and CEO of Everstar. Everstar is using advanced AI to take regulatory timelines that used to take years and shrink them down dramatically. Kevin's background spans across engineering leadership, AI development, startups, and big tech. And today, he's bringing all of that into nuclear. We're talking about AI, digital twins, safety, trust, and what it takes to deploy reactors at the pace the world now demands. Kevin, welcome to the show.
It's great to be here, Dominique. Excited to share a conversation with you.
Awesome. All right. So, Kevin, let's start at the beginning. You use the phrase engineering planetary abundance. For people listening who may not be in nuclear or tech, what does that actually look like to you?
Humanity has been a long history of unlocking more and more energy out of the surroundings that it found itself in. So for a very long time, we were largely just getting by on wood and spending a lot of our day just gathering enough wood and water. And the rest of the time, maybe we'll read some books. But as we found more dense sources like coal, we found a way to put that into steam engines and got farther and farther into our nether reaches of our society, and we're able to stretch farther, and cities became a lot closer. As we found oil, that globalized the world. Now we can get to the other side of the planet in less than 24 hours. And so we're kind of stuck in that last stage where hydrocarbons are really the main source of transportation and other kinds of energy sources. I kept imagining what would it be like to just rewire society around a new paradigm. So that's been my long 10-year journey leading up to this point. And been trying to do this in solar and batteries and fusion or space solar. I just found myself hitting up against the walls of either it's too sci-fi way out there, or it was just not dense enough to really be able to scale on a global level. So here I am. I find myself now in fission land, where I just think that this is the technology that's going to tide us over into possibly an age of fusion. Until then, the technology, the density of the power, the reliability of the supply chain is already there. But just in America, we seem to have lost our bearings on this technology, where we invented this not too long ago. And other countries and other supply chains are demonstrating that American-based designs can be scaled up and standardized and go down the learning curve so that it becomes more economical over time. So with those real A/B test proof points, I realized that it's a high time for us to apply the latest learnings from artificial intelligence coming out of Silicon Valley, both in language models, but also in vision, physics models, world models, action models, that help enable us to do more with less, and all the human labor that goes into designing, manufacturing, operating, constructing reactors, we can do much more with fewer people, so that we can reduce the cost basis of nuclear in this country again. And when it becomes more bankable, nuclear will quite possibly become the default energy choice of our next few centuries. So that's the exciting vision that we're building this company on. There's a long road ahead. We're only in the early innings right now, but all the technologies you mentioned and then some will need to come together to make reactors safe and also economical.
Oh my gosh, Kevin, you have done an incredible job of setting the stage, especially really explaining your why. So now I want to chat with you about the how, right? Like, what you're
Mhm.
building at Everstar. I've read that it's very, very different from, the slow paper heavy world nuclear is used to. So for the people who don't necessarily live in this world, and for those who do, can you share what's the real difference between someone working in nuclear today with AI tools like yours and without them?
We see a wide range of tech adoption in different customers that we talk to. Some of the advanced reactors customers who really started from the digital first kind of world, they largely have things a bit more handled, still many challenges. And then you got your other side of the fence where people still have a lot of information in file cabinets, microfilm, microfiche. I'm sad to say, I didn't know what that technology was until I came into this industry. It was my floppy drive moment for some of the Gen Z kids. So we see all these fragmentation problems across the industry where because they've been operating for so long on manufacturers that no longer exist sometimes from plants that have been maintained at different times throughout their long decades long lives. um, the the key essence or the key learning that we started this company on was nuclear is all about safety, and safety is documentation. Documentation necessarily means everything just gets written down into paper, and everything's procedural. Everything's as repetitive and rote as possible. The stakeholder management with internal folks as well as external, not just your customers, but also your regulator, is extremely important. That paper trail is everything to the plant. So if you're talking about data stores that often customers are coming to us with, say, the tens to 20 million files across decades, that are often extremely long from multiple decades, different technologies. So some things are scanned, some things are handwritten over typeface. The list goes on and on. And the often the documents themselves are extremely long documents with all sorts of images, diagrams, charts, maps, equations, inspection, sheets that are also handwritten. They all come together in one document. I realized coming from the Silicon Valley experience, no off-the-shelf model can just read these things and with the underlying technology, just be able to reverse engineer that. Because if you think about what a human team would do to reverse engineer the same process, it's a lot of research, a lot of cross-referencing, a lot of precedent analysis. What worked, what didn't work, and then use their really good human brains to judge what is important in this day and age, what track record should we highlight, what regulatory change necessitates or makes redundant some of the things that we prior commitments have made. So we realize that one model cannot do the job, and the complexity of one model being able to do things accurately, explainably, and accurately, or completely rather, is absolutely required for AI to be able to handle safety critical documentation. Without any of these three pillars, then it's hard to trust or leverage the right tools, because I don't want to go fact check what this AI said if it's talking about, I just read 10,000 pages. I'm not going to go read 10,000 pages again. You're adding more work for me if it's not complete and well cited, so that I can easily go and trust that it looks about like you actually read a 10,000 page report. So we realized these key understandings, applied it into the product, and the customers who are coming from these worlds where it's document heavy, a lot of nuances and judgment calls that have to be made. It's very difficult to do all of that in such critical timelines. And so this really helps folks get to the first draft or first insights much faster. We do not automate people away. That is nowhere near where we are today. But we help folks get the insights necessary for them to be able to say, this looks like a great first draft. Now I've saved about 60, 80% of the time. I can use the remaining time that I created for myself to get more fact checking, get more curation done, find one more precedent to be able to leverage. So we're really here to help make nuclear operators' lives easier at this point.
I love it. I love it, which really helps me to transition into one of the things that I am really excited to chat with you about. I literally call it the fun stuff, right? So digital twins. I want to chat with you about that. Digital twins, advanced simulations, AI. This is where nuclear can feel overwhelming to the everyday person, as you've explained. I'm sure operators are in love with you. So before we get into the deep stuff, could you help set the stage for me, kind of in a first things first kind of manner? What is a digital twin?
A digital twin is a representation of, say, a reactor or a plant in digital form, in ways that help you simulate how the operations or the dynamics, like, say, thermofluid dynamics or hydrodynamics of the system would operate under certain parameter conditions, so that you can see if it's going to hold up to any of the loads, stresses, and be able to handle any kind of extreme scenario. Is it performing to the degree that you expect the design to hold up to? And this can come in many different ways. A lot of software from the legacy world do provide this value add. Where AI is going to be extremely interesting is where you can start, because these calculations of how things would play out in these scenarios is extremely computational intensive. This kind of territory was largely reserved for national laboratories or basically people with unlimited budgets. Used to be that domain, and now it's come down market to enterprise companies can run a lot of these simulations. The ANSYS, the GE software of the world, but it still remains to be extremely expensive. So where AI is extremely promising, not quite there, but extremely promising is it's not running rules-based calculations of every permutation. So say if you're doing weather pattern analysis, you're not calculating down to the every last floating point of how you would simulate the weather to change across time. You are approximating the function by capturing those patterns in a neural net model, and then you can play out the scenarios extremely fast and much cheaper. You do lose some points in accuracy. So that's why at this point it's still not seeing like mainstream adoption. But if in exchange for the trade-off of a few points of accuracy, you're getting a lot more iterations. The time to insight, it's about 1,000x faster. And so you can have many, many more hits at bat. And if you run it on something like a simulation world, Omniverse from NVIDIA, then you can simulate, many, many more worlds of scenarios in parallel. So as the technology gets better, as the algorithms and the neural nets get more accurate, we foresee this to be a much more robust way to simulate how will this perform under any kind of scenario. And just to be clear, that is on our roadmap of things we're going to develop with NVIDIA's software tools, interconnected with other things like our compliance engine, quality assurance and compliance engine. So you really, in one picture, get to see, yes, this performed well in hydrodynamic analysis. That means they pass a certain quality assurance check. Like that's the kind of synergies we expect to see with our combined system. But we haven't built that part out yet because our customers told us that's not the number one problem. But we foresee a lot of value there.
So, that actually begs another question for me. And I'd say probably for those that are listening, it's going to be combined two questions. How does that fit into moving the approval process forward in a more faster and safer way? I know you've touched on that a little bit. If you could expand, that'll be fantastic. And then the other question, as a follow-up to that, is what guidance do you think the NRC needs to put out there with respect to accepting digital twins?
So there needs to be some mindset shift first and foremost, and I think will be a hard requirement in the grander scheme of things. There hasn't been there's generally a stance that they want to have, say, a Chinese wall between the regulator and the regulated. They want to make sure that there's no, unintended cheating of sorts, or they want to come to independent conclusions about the data that's presented or the conclusions that are presented to the regulator. So they don't want, say, for example, for the regulator and regulated to use the same tool or the same view. And just, look over the shoulder and, oh, it looks about right. I'm going to squint a little and looks about right. Check. That's not how they want to do things. Of course not. It's nuclear safety. So you want to do this right.
Rightfully so.
So they want to be able to reconstruct data or the analyses on their own. They sometimes have their own tooling to be able to do things. So where digital twins could accelerate is if both parties on either ends could reach the same conclusion about these are the parameters with which we will test, under which we believe will be covering 99 point and then 99s or something cases. If we agree to those procedures, then let's just have the AI just duke it out, right? Let's have it monkey test in all sorts of different scenarios under these parameters. If it passes those tests and, most of the time, then we consider these to be, independently verified that it's going to be safe for the conditions that we agreed to. That will accelerate things quite a lot because it's not about arguing about particular thresholds. That's a big topic that opens a lot of can of worms. Linear no threshold, good or bad. If we just want to cover the kind of parameters in the cases and agree on those things, AI can back of the napkin, reverse engineer into those scenarios. Are we covered in those cases or not? And it can cover a lot of different kinds of physics coming together these days. So multi-physics coupling is getting a lot better and more robust. And that's something that AI can definitely accelerate with. So just having AI do all the hard stuff or the calculations, whereas humans just handle what scenarios do we care about. Humans doing what humans do best, AI doing all the time-consuming things. That's the way we're going to accelerate pathways on both sides, the submission and the review, because it's about generally symmetrical in time. So if it takes 18 months to draft, it takes about 18 months to review is generally what we've seen. And so it has to be both sides kind of problem. So if we equip both sides with the best tooling for gauging safety, then it's going to be massively accelerating. And I don't remember the second part of your question. But hopefully that covers it.
Yeah, no, I think so. I wanna kind of get your opinion or even your experience around,
Mhm.
what you're hearing from operators, right? Like my assumption is that you do have deep relationships with operators who've been in the business. I'm going to say forever and a day, right? Is there anything
Mhm.
that you can share that really excites them, that worries them about, the things that you're doing on your side?
We hear a lot of things, and we love our customers. We are really obsessed with how they have some really tough jobs. They are maintaining assets that produce a fifth of the nation's electricity, more than
Mm-hmm.
double what solar and wind combined produce on an annual basis. And they're critically losing talent. The labor that's needed to maintain, operate, design, build new of these assets, or even the parts that would go into these plants as replacement materials. The people are aging out of the industry because we've had 4 decades of basically no building. And so, customers also often tell us there's no amount of money or time that can solve this problem, right? That's kind of scary. Um, you can't just throw money at the problem and say, hey, instead of going to Google or a more lucrative industry like oil and gas or solar and wind, go pick nuclear. It's a hard proposition. Um, so, they have a really tough job of maintaining these assets with fewer and fewer people. We hear more about retirement parties per month than more people joining and excitement for the industry of young people joining the workforce. So, we're really excited to offer a solution that can at least be a stopgap solution for that. And so what customers are excited about is, hey, I used to have to tap 4 people for the tribal knowledge that's in their heads so that we can go find exactly which document we have to pull from this file cabinet, which regulatory guidance we have to use. Is it Rev 6 or Rev 7? It's really disparate, all these places where they have tribal knowledge stored. And if you're dealing with something as complicated as nuclear regulatory safety, then it just so is multidisciplinary by definition. And so it requires a lot of folks from all sorts of areas to come together. And the ability for AI to come and solve that problem by making more, what's the word here? More semantic understanding possible at everybody's fingertips. That's pretty exciting for our customers. So that's the first step. The second step is drafting these things often takes a really long time. And so our ability for our tools to be able to help them get to the 80% in 20% of the time, that's extremely exciting so that they can let engineers engineer is generally what we say to our customers. So the ability for them to get back to what they were hired for, doing fewer menial tasks so that they can actually focus on the safety or the engineering. That's extremely valuable for them. And then, we reserve a little bit of time at the end for discussing things that would get them really excited, like the digital twins, or we are actually working on a tool right now that analyzes schematics out of plant diagrams, blueprints, electrical diagrams, PNID schematic diagrams. So being able to take those diagrams and help you ask any questions against it. So is this part, let's say a bell valve or ball valve rather, is that going to be on a safety critical line, or is that something that is one or two hops away from another part that just degraded to require a replacement. So yeah, that's a really exciting product that's now gaining some traction and adoption in the market. So there's all kinds of AI applications that are coming together in our platform now that for one problem or another, are becoming extremely valuable and useful.
Pulling that thread on bottlenecks in the industry a bit more, where do you see the other big bottlenecks outside of regulation? Is it people, factories, fuel? And if you could expound after that on, the needs of the workforce to, match the acceleration that's happening on the innovative side of nuclear energy.
It really depends what side you're talking about. If it's on maintaining the existing fleets, we have bigger problems in probably the supply chain, where because of the lack of a lot of build outs and a robust supply chain where orders are flowing every year, there's very few plants that you can service in this industry. Suppliers are opting to actually move out of the this industry and service oil and gas or automobiles instead. And now space is an exciting place for people to be selling to instead. And so the fact that we have a vicious cycle of it becoming more and more expensive and lower volume of an industry, and therefore fewer players are left, and that's causing more price inflation, and it's becoming harder and harder to source materials. There's actually players now, quasi consultants, that just take things off the shelf and go through a process called commercial grade dedication to take off the shelf parts and try to make it feasible for people to use in the nuclear setting. And they charge quite a penny to take that part and make it nuclear friendly. So that price delta between the final product cost and the raw material cost is what I often call the idiot index, where like how many how idiotic is it is that whole process to go from raw materials to end deliver value, right? If it's a huge delta, there's something wrong, right? If it's a very extremely robust supply chain and market, then it's a very small delta that you can charge as a premium because many other players can provide that same service for good. And there's a lot of incentives for people to enter the market. So, the profit margin has been arbed out to a good extent. In this industry, it's extremely marked up quite high, which indicates that there's very few players left. If you have very few choices and your, valve replacement is critical to, as a stopgap solution to $1 million a day being leaked out because of the outage, then you just got to use that vendor. These kinds of problems keep compounding. And so in the operating world right now, I'd say that's probably one of the, biggest bottlenecks of some very abnormal problems going on. Alongside people. Again, people is the number one constraint in all different aspects right now. Advanced reactors, new builds, and existing reactors. If we skip over to the new build world, where the administration wants 300 gigawatts, prior administrations wanted 200 gigawatts to triple the nuclear fleet capacity. We probably need closer to 300 planned so that we can actually hit the tripling of nuclear, because a lot of those existing ones will age out and need to be decommissioned. Yeah. So if we want 300 gigawatts of additional capacity, the global fleet will be made largely in Korea, as of today, where we stand. The power of the die press that needs to be that is required to make pressure vessels of that gigawatt scale size. There's very few places in the world that have that kind of press. It's usually about 14,000 pounds force of pressure or higher that you need. And we do not have those kinds of equipment in this country anymore. It is literally that equipment needs its own foundations. That's how crazy that equipment is. You need to set that foundation, another set of concrete foundations for that equipment for up to 2 years before you can put that equipment on top of it. That's how big this equipment is. We no longer have that equipment. We only have ones up to, I think, 12,000 or 13,000 pounds of force. So the one that America has been ordering all of its reactors from, it's in Korea. There's one facility in Korea that handles most of these orders. So NuScale's upper pressure vessels, X Energy's entire pressure vessel, all of Westinghouse's AP1000 pressure vessels are made in this one facility. Their annual capacity for throughput of reactor pressure vessels is sub 5 gigawatts per year. So if you want to build 300 gigawatts, we're orders of magnitude away from anything meaningful that'll get more than 5 sites built per year. So manufacturing is going to be a big bottleneck. And of course, a lot of problems are, people like to point fingers at the construction. There was a lot of issues with Vogel. It's very fresh in our minds. There was a lot of missteps. It looks so bad from the outside. What? You had to redo the concrete foundations? Why? If you don't know exactly what happened, it looks so idiotic, but, there are many issues and like opportunities for improvement there. So we do have folks that we're working with as advisors who are going to help us come up with solutions to ameliorate that. But we can just look at the Chinese. They have already adopted best-in-class construction methodologies for constructing their own CAP1000s, which is based on the AP1000. They have modular construction that actually works, and that is one of the big contributing factors to how their assembly is so fast and efficient. And in our case, a couple of companies went bankrupt as a result of that. So there's a stark contrast between how we're able to do things and where real proof points have been laid down that you can build these very efficiently and cheaply. So different aspects have different bottlenecks right now. We as an early stage company cannot solve all problems just yet. We have to find as many commonalities as we can and try to do the most with the least we have. And so this is why we started in compliance land. Compliance is the core of nuclear safety. Nuclear safety is the common denominator to operating reactors, to advanced reactors, to new builds. Every time you want to build a new site, you have to qualify the new site for safety. If you want to gauge safety of that site, you have to run through a lot of weather analyses. Who needs that? It's operating reactors or people who want to build new gigawatt class reactors and advanced reactors. Everybody has to get an environmental assessment. Let's go automate that as much as we can, right? That same engine that can take data, calculations, research, and make regulatory assessments is also necessary for ongoing, routine maintenance and engineering operations and reactor operations today. Right. So we built what can be used in as many settings as possible so that we can help as many operators as possible to just cut down as many of the bottlenecks as we can. But we'll try to do as much as we can over the next few years in this life of this company.
Oh no, it's exciting. It's exciting. So let me ask you this. If you could do a pilot with an NRC, what would that look like?
Oh, I have so many ideas. Well, we can start with just making their publicly already published documentation repository called Atoms much more AI friendly. So that's number one. That's going to make everybody's jobs easier. Technology is one thing. One thing I've learned in my last 10 years, building technology and putting it in people's hands. Building technology is one thing. Getting people to use it is another very big, important part. And a lot of the nuclear industry is, coming from the 70s technology, the 90s technology, or, some are very well equipped, of course, recent tech, but it runs the gamut in tech literacy. So building something that is very close to where they are so that they can easily come into the modern world, adopt tools that will make their lives much easier, making it as intuitive like an iPhone as possible. How to use an iPhone. No instructions needed. You just open it and you just know. So we're trying to build along those lines. How do we build tools that meet them where they are? We will start with Atoms because everybody knows how to use Atoms. As tough as it is to use, people know that. And so how do you build on top of that? That's actually exactly what our tool looks like today, at the base layer. So you have what is atoms plus AI features on top. So you can ask questions. You can fetch documents by asking a question in natural language instead of keyword after keyword after keyword. Filter by date range. You don't have to do that. So we build that first. And then if we like working together, maybe we'll do digital twins and all the other fun stuff. But,
Oh yeah, yeah.
one thing first. Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking, as you were sharing kind of your philosophy and principles around, what nuclear and AI means for the future of power. It's going to be crazy attractive for the future generation to kind of be able to plug in. I mean, obviously, training is going to be required, but for the future generation to just kind of plug in and start meeting the workforce needs again, so we can get after really becoming or protecting our nation in the energy perspective. So let's just say if nuclear and AI really do power the future, what do you think everyday life would look like in about 10 to 20 years?
The biggest change that would happen in society is the power density of the main power source will be much cheaper. The availability of power would be hopefully many factors, if not an order of magnitude or more available. That would be in the 20-year time frame. If that becomes the case, then the industries that were very hard to abate from a climate perspective. Today, marine diesel, shipping, logistics is very difficult to replace and turn green because what is the alternative? It's extremely expensive to run, say, like a solar panel on top and power a ship of that size. It's impossible. But what could be a viable option is the use of ammonia or hydrogen-based technologies. But that comes with its own problems. So far, the biggest bottleneck is power.
Yeah.
The way to split water molecules, which are very chemically stable as a compound, into its composite forms of hydrogen, gas, and oxygen, is extremely power intensive. And so much so, I mean, this is a clean way to make hydrogen. The cheapest way is just split natural gas, right? So that's a dirty way. That's gray hydrogen. If you want to make clean hydrogen, you have to split water. And that's very power intensive. If we have nuclear energy abundantly everywhere, then it becomes much more viable and economically at parity with existing ways to make hydrogen, that you can start replacing out these very dirty old ships with something that, I've joked about this before in a TED talk, but it farts out nothing but water. If you use hydrogen and merge it with oxygen again, it just becomes water again, and you get some energy out that you'll use for useful work. That's a beautiful world to live in, where the emissions are just water coming out of this technology. But we have to solve the energy problem first, and this applies in many other areas where compute is going to be also enable next waves of innovation. Maybe fusion is actually possible if you can discover the right blanket material, the right containment material for the plasma. Because wearing out these materials that are basically subjected to 100 million degrees Celsius all the time, of course you're not going to find anything easily that's going to hold that. But if we have the compute to be able to discover new materials easily, and be able to simulate new scenarios, that I think that is the key to new discoveries like that will just open up a whole new world. And then my imagination is probably very limited compared to others. So, there's probably many more things we could do. If you ask somebody from the 18th century, well, what does an iPhone look like? They can't tell you anything, right? It's really inconceivable. But I think if energy abundance really starts climbing the ladder, You just enable a whole new generation of entrepreneurs and dreamers and builders to come and leverage that new world to build something incredible. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, so thank you for that. Two more questions. And this question I'm going to ask is probably going to appear as if I'm backpedaling, but I want to make sure that I provide some space for you to talk about nuclear powered data centers because a lot is happening there. It is the hot topic item. I'm not sure how long that is going to be the hot topic item, but I wanted to make space for you to share your opinions around nuclear powered data centers.
It's the most opportune time in the world for nuclear to get its shoelaces tied again and run towards the finish line. When the biggest companies in the world are waking up and say they need more power and you provide the most power, it's about time. Everybody needs to raise their hand and no questions asked, what seat am I getting on in this rocket? No, you just get on the rocket, right? We need to run headfirst into this space. As we were talking about before this recording started, we need to act with wartime urgency. I think my hot take opinion on this is that people assume we have infinite time and that this hype cycle will stay here forever. This has happened several times already in in the few waves of nuclear renaissance that people called last few times. It did not work so well. It didn't last too long. I think certain things are different about this time. The alignment of traditional energy companies, they're very much aligned with nuclear this time around because we've already tapped out of natural gas and diesel generators. So this is not a, me against you problem. This is, hey, maybe an expansion of opportunity, business lines to be added potential. So I think that's changing this time, which therefore also means the anti-nuclear lobby is not as powerful this time. So that's also going in our favor this time. But people have to really wake up and act in unison way more. The American system cannot support 20 different supply chains for 20 different reactor designs for each asset class. We need to standardize a little bit more on microreactors, SMRs, and the gigawatt class reactors, and just get building. What I would urge the whole industry to think about and more entrepreneurs to get into is what is ready to build today. What is the fastest path to electrons powered by nuclear on the grid today? That's all we talk about at this company. Where is the fastest electron coming from in this system? From operating reactors is power operates and plant life extensions. So license renewals.
Right.
That's a lot of what we helped out with in the early days of the company. Now we're helping some operating reactors and we're gearing up towards new build applications. So new builds, obviously, that's going to power new electrons from the grid. Of all of the designs, which ones are going to come to market first? Venture capitalists and new innovators, people who don't want to take the traditional legacy pathways to nuclear, they're all saying SMRs are the future. But that remains to be seen. So I think we need to take a very pragmatic approach to this as a portfolio. It still remains to be seen whether you can overcome the physics penalty of making smaller reactors, economical via scale, economies of scale, right? That's the whole premise on which SMRs are based on. If you build a lot of them in a factory setting or shipyard setting, as some propose, maybe you can overcome the fact that you don't get as much power for just about as much in cost. New scale reactors are not that much bigger in pressure vessel than the gigawatt, or that much smaller than the gigawatt class reactors. So, that remains to be seen. So those do need to move forward. And I really applaud the administration for creating the sandbox environment through the DOE to be able to prove out the first of a kind build outs. That was absolutely critical, was really sorely in need of leadership from somebody to clear that pathway. it's definitely the right move. So we have 11 vendors who are eager, excited to get to criticality by July 4th next year. I'm really excited about that timeline. But from there, how do we go from first of a kind to nth of a kind? This is where I also have to, caution some sober message to the industry. People think just because we got first of a kind means you can get to NRC commercial deployable authorizations overnight. That is not true. You need to gather data, which takes time. You need to do the commercial licensing process, which takes a lot of time. You have to factor in a lot of new cases and scenarios to be more robustly proven to be safe anywhere you want to site it, right? As opposed to INL pre-sited land. It's been historically decades of reactors being tested there. That's a very different game than let's put it anywhere in the country. So that's going to take a lot of time. And then siting of things and getting vendors, supply chain ready, costs under control, getting all the people ready. Yeah. These are all multi-year problems. I have not seen a single player who've really thought this through and stacked them enough such that we can start building in 3 years after the first of a kind gets built. I'm not seeing that yet, right? I want to be proven wrong. I want to see that plan. Maybe it's already in somebody's PDF and I just can't see it. I would love to hear more of those plans of clarity and timeline certainty, because that is the number one problem in this industry, right? Timeline certainty is what causes projects to not be financeable. Cost overruns to be a problem that even normal common people think about and say, hey, isn't nuclear too time consuming? It's always so such a big fanfare about timelines. So I would love to see that a sober view to be well understood, and for the administration to take initiative on the next steps. So we actually have policy recommendations ourselves on what needs to happen. We've open sourced, actually announced this on Friday. We've open sourced our AI tool specifically for the scaling of their Department of Energy first of a kind approval to take that into the NRC's commercial ready license documentation. So to go from the DSA document, as it's called, take that and convert it to a safety analysis report, FSAR. So we are open sourcing this tool in partnership with Microsoft. We built alongside their infrastructure tooling. We're soon going to work with a national lab to make this tool more widely available. That announcement is forthcoming. But just for this tool, we see this as an accelerant play for everyone to have an easier time from first to nth of a kind. And so we're excited to get that in people's hands. But what's beyond that? There's many, many issues beyond that we would like to hear more about. And I don't know if this is actually answering your main question, which is the excitement around data centers. Data centers need to be built today, right? They are looking for power today. So if we're not giving clear guidelines on these timelines, which might be maybe by design, because it seems very challenging. But I applaud those efforts of folks that are taking a portfolio approach and say, we'll get you power today. We are a nuclear company, but we'll get you power today from a gas turbine. And then we'll get you power from something else. And then nuclear will be ready. We're working towards it in, say, 5 years, 6 years. I think that is the right timeline of things to happen.
Okay.
I don't think this is a big problem because Jensen announced he has way more chips he's going to sell in the next 18 months, way more by a big factor than the Hopwell, I would say the Hopper line of chips. So the Blackwells are way more power dense, and it's got a much bigger order book, $500 billion of order book over the next 18 months. We're already running out of power today. So how are we powering those chips, right? So the runway for nuclear to have a role to play, we've got some time. So we really need to make MMR and SMR pathways for first of a kind to nth of a kind deployments much easier. Somebody needs to actually go into the weeds. I know it's not fun thinking about regulations or safety, but the industry has to go in and really map this out and offer clear, intelligible timelines to folks to know what to expect, and not so much on hype. We all need to really ground on data. And then on the gigawatt class front, this is where we get excited, because gigawatt class reactors like AP1000, you just need to qualify a site and bring them money. Then you're actually really good to go. Well, you need to solve the labor problem. It's a common problem, but as long as you can get those two big limiting factors in place, we can bring some expert labor from, say, Korea, who are really great at project management. We can get some skilled nuclear qualified labor from other industries that are adjacent. We can create journeyman programs that accelerate the process, which we have done in this country. Henry Kaiser built 3,000 ships, or 2,000 something, but close to 3,000 ships in a short time, because he was able to upskill the labor very quickly. Right? He used wartime authorizations to be able to do that, among many other initiatives. So we don't see anything different here. If AI dominance is going to be the next theater of battle, and whether we like it or not, this isn't just hype. If we're getting attacked on all digital fronts, our critical infrastructure now is getting more and more plugged into the grid, and we're getting more and more sovereign attackers on our systems. It's a matter of time before it gets overwhelmed, or we're not able to keep these assets online. And other theaters of battle could be lost. And so if we think of AI dominance as a combination of data, power, algorithms, and the talent, we're losing on many of the fronts, maybe except chips and algorithms. Algorithms are hard to say either now, because open source models are very good in China. We don't like to use it. We don't like to talk about it, but they're extremely good for how much power they use, how many parameters they have, or how little they had to train things. So, the lead that we have is precarious at best. And then power, it's already lost in my book, because they can produce our American-based designs in a fifth of the cost today. Not 20 years from now, not projected. This is today. They're putting up 6 to 8 reactors per year.
That is wild.
At a fifth of the cost. And so think about it. If we want to just catch up in 10 years, they will have produced 60 to 80 reactors in 10 years. So we need to authorize 60 to 80 gigawatts of gigawatt class reactors today and finish them in 10 years, which is not possible, by the way, in America. We have not done that in a long time. Finishing in 10 years. If we do that, then we have a shot at keeping up, but at 5 times the cost. That's the wild thing we got going on here. So if you want to even catch up, we're way behind. We see a lot of opportunity for players like us who think about every layer of the cost structure. How do we 10x this cost down? Does this need to be there in the first place? Is there a much more creative way for us to be able to assemble these atoms into the final assembled form? You have to do this at every layer, from design to manufacturing to construction, to offer something that's a fifth of the cost. That is the North Star now for us.
Do you see, I know we're going a bit long, but do you see the kind of investment to get after addressing this issue, where you stand, where you sit? Like, are we getting the kind of investment and interest from, those who have the resources to support us basically beating China?
I do see those resources lining up at every layer of society. So government is really getting in front of this issue. I think it's still lacking a few concrete tactical policies to really cement it as, okay, we're going full steam ahead on nuclear. We're going to be a nuclear leader in the world for the next several centuries. I don't see that clarity yet, but a lot of the early groundwork has been set. So we're very positive about those indications. So we are working closely with folks in the government to make that a reality. And they're going to be able to deploy the most dollars in a most standardized way
Okay.
for reactors. But there's a lot of private capital lining up too. So a lot of this momentum of nuclear excitement came from Microsoft announcing the Constellation deal. So the big tech players, folks with the most cash on their balance sheets, are now paying attention. Are they going to deploy as much money into nuclear reactors as data centers? Probably not. Not yet. If it becomes timeline certain and cost competitive, I think they will. I
Okay.
think we're going to be entering a world where the biggest operators of nuclear plants in this country is not utilities, but it could be hyperscalers. But the costs and timelines have to get under control, right? It just not is not going to happen without that. But yeah, that's going to be a big a source of capital and alignment for the ecosystem. Utilities are starting to also consider the next few plants and sites to put their new reactors on. Not a lot has been made official, but we know almost yeah, all the plants are strongly considering at least one plant, one site at least, or an extension to their existing sites. Right. They already have pre-licensed like parcels of land that could be useful for somebody to put a data center and a reactor on there. They already have security envelopes, and they know how to do things. Nuclear professionals are already on site, so there are opportunistic plays like that. So I do see big capital starting to move. I think we're still in the first innings, though. We need to get to inning 8 or 9 to really see a nuclear abundant world.
Okay. Thank you. Um, I'll make this my last question. It's been such a joy chatting with you. We'll have to do a part two, absent of
I love
technical
to, yeah.
difficulties. um,
Yeah.
I, I am very passionate about nuclear energy and what it means for the workforce, what it
Mhm.
means for our nation. What's your personal connection to what you are enabling at Everstar?
I think the role I play is generally to be the person who sees around the corner a bit more, challenge the status quo, both on the AI engineering front, what's possible, timelines, capabilities to push the envelope, and also on nuclear. I am not a nuclear engineer by traditional training. I'm not a naval nuke. I've I've stumbled into this really as an outsider, but while that might it require me to work harder than other folks to speak more intelligently, that does give me a fresh pair of eyes. Or help me see things from a different perspective. So I need to use that to my advantage and for the benefit of the industry. That I will respect and honor the things that matter, like nuclear safety. That's not one to screw around with. There's a reason why the American safety standards are appreciated and adopted worldwide. And I'm not just saying that from a patriotic perspective. It's decades of safety research and implementations that went into place. Why is all the containment buildings like airplane proof? That's layers and layers of that, right? So I respect the things that cannot move, but if it's not necessary and we can reason from first principles in the physics layers of it, then my job is to challenge that and balance it against economic imperatives or more important imperatives. And I'm not the only one thinking this way. There's many smarter people who have championed this for earlier than I have. But I help bring the technology to a problem that's really ready for this kind of application. And yeah, I think that's just my role to help accelerate things. There have been decades of very, very intelligent physicists, engineers who really built the essence of this technology and commercialized it for peaceful use cases. There will be other folks that I'd love to work with to make other applications, other technologies even more widely available. I'm not the person designing a new reactor. That's not me. I would love to just make the technology more widely available, and that could be my contribution.
Well, thank you. This has been an incredible conversation. Can you let the listeners know where to find you and how to connect with you?
Yeah, it's been a pleasure on my end as well, Dominique. I'd love to do a part two. You can find me on generally LinkedIn is my Insta, so to speak, where I spend most of my time. Big nerd here. So if you search me, Kevin Kong on LinkedIn, but also for company updates, you can find me on everstar.ai.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Well,
Thanks so
for
much.
those, oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. For those who have tuned in to listen to this amazing conversation with Kevin, I want to say thank you as well. I have some exciting news to share. We are now on YouTube. So you can find us using the handle at Advanced Nuclear UCAN. Look, if this episode inspired you in any kind of way, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Thank you again, Kevin, for your time. Look forward to speaking to you in the future.
Thank you, Dominique. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for joining us on Advanced Nuclear, powered by UCAN Power. If this episode brought clarity to the future of American energy, share it with someone shaping policy or industry. I'm Dominique Cooper. This is the moment. This is the movement. See you on the next episode.